What kind of prank ends with official papers under a clear sky? How did one joke at a party become a quiet plan that I never saw? Can a husband win without yelling when the crowd already chose my side? I'm Ottilie Brand, 32, and I said a joke could not hurt a marriage. I work the front desk at a salon where smiles fix everything. My husband, Miles, 35, moved boxes for a living and liked tidy plans. Our daughter, Lila, 6, loved stickers and bedtime songs. People said I was fun and he was steady. I said that made us perfect. I believed laughter proved consent. I believed the crowd was a witness on my side. At a birthday in a community hall, music was loud and cups were cheap. Noah, Miles's best friend since high school, sat in a chair and opened his arms in a dare. I slid onto his lap because everyone was shouting for a prank. Phones were up. I thought it was cute and bright. I thought Miles would relax if I smiled big enough. He looked at me and stayed very calm. He said later that respect mattered. I told him everyone laughed. I told him he was acting strict. I told him it was only a prank, not cheating. I liked how the room cheered when I said that line. Back home, I rinsed glasses and kept talking. I said jokes keep love young. He said I crossed a line. I said lines move if both people breathe. He did not fight. He took a blanket to the couch and said the house needed calm. I called it dramatic. I posted a quick caption that said, "Party prank, relax." Hearts came fast. I felt safe again. His phone on the counter lit up once, then went dark. A small reminder tile sat on the screen and said, "Downtown 0935. I told myself it was errands. I turned off the light and felt taller than my mistakes. Morning brought whispers at work. My manager asked for a quick word about the clip. I said the game made me do it. I said Noah was like a brother. I said Miles knew I was playful. A client watched me while paying for shampoo and smirked. My sister texted that humor wins if I keep posting. I believed her. I believed the internet would fix the mood at home. I did not see how Miles started writing things down. I did not see how quiet can be a plan. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I washed party cups in our small kitchen and told myself the night had been harmless. I said a prank could not hurt a marriage because everyone laughed. Miles stood by the counter with his hands in his pockets and watched the water run. He said, I crossed a line, not because of noise, but because of respect. I said respect looked different when people trusted each other. He said trust did not mean sitting on his best friend's lap while phones were up. I said the game pushed me. He said I climbed up by choice. I kept rinsing because moving felt like control. The apartment still smelled like frosting and cola. I moved the trash bag and called the whole thing silly. I said Noah had been a chair for 2 seconds. I said the chant made it funny. Miles said a chant was not consent. I said he had told me earlier to relax. He said relax did not mean act single in front of the group. I said he was being strict. He said boundaries keep people safe. He sounded calm, and I hated the feeling that calm could be stronger than loud. I wanted a fight I could win as a show. He did not offer one. I carried plates to the sink and replayed the moment in the community hall. Noah had leaned back and opened his arms like a dare. Friends had tapped their phones and counted down for fun. I had sat fast, light and quick, because the room was hot and the story wanted a face. Laughter came bright. I told myself laughter was proof that no one felt pain. I told myself my husband would see it like a skit. But when I looked over at Miles in memory, he had not smiled. He had folded his jaw tight. He had said later that I humiliated him. I called that word too big. I wiped the counter and showed him the clip on my phone anyway. I said, look, everyone accepted it. He said, public acceptance does not rewrite a promise. I said, marriage needs air. He said, air is not the same as flames. I said he was making it heavy for no reason. He said he did not want Lila to think this was normal. I said Lila was asleep during the party and saw nothing. He said children feel what adults pretend to hide. I counted to 3 in my head and told myself I could fix this with a better spin. I went into the bedroom, changed into a soft shirt, and came back with smiles. I said tomorrow we would laugh about it. He said tonight he needed quiet. He took a folded blanket from the hall chair and said he would sleep on the couch. I said the couch was punishment. He said the couch was peace. I stood with my arms crossed and told him he was dramatic. He did not answer. He laid the blanket on the couch, adjusted the edge, and placed a small pillow by the arm. He looked like a man preparing for a long trip inside his own house. The group chat on my phone pinged with laughing emojis. Danny sent a clip labeled "Lap Pass." The video showed me sliding onto Noah as friends shouted in a happy storm. I stared at myself with a grin too wide for my own face. I typed a caption and called it a prank. I wrote that couples evolve. Ria replied with a crown emoji and told me to keep the energy. I believed her because I liked how belief felt. I posted the caption to my story and watched tiny hearts float up. I told Miles that the internet understood us. He said the internet did not vote in our home. I opened the fridge and poured juice. I told him I would book a sitter and take him to a rooftop, just us two, to make up for it. He said he wanted something more simple. Respect that did not need a camera. I said cameras only helped. He said cameras can harm. I said only if someone chooses to feel harm. He said harm does not ask for permission. I rolled my eyes because eyes are easy to roll when words stall. He gathered 2 cups for Lila's lunchbox and washed them slowly. He moved like time belonged to him. When I went to set my alarm, his phone lit up on the counter. A small rectangle pulsed on the lock screen. It read, "Downtown Alero 935. I saw it as a boring reminder, maybe dry cleaning or a supply pickup. I told myself he was finally learning to schedule errands, which I had asked him to do for years. I told myself this was progress he owed me. I asked if he wanted to talk more. He said tomorrow, after sleep. He turned off the kitchen light and left his phone face down. The apartment felt quiet, in a way that felt thick. I brushed my teeth and told my reflection that I was brave, not cruel. I told myself that people who fear fun will always call it betrayal. I told myself I would teach him a softer view in the morning. I checked Lila, who slept with a sticker book by her hand, stars half peeled on her cheek. I kissed the air near her hair and felt holy for a second. Back in the living room, the couch creaked as Miles lay down. The sound made me feel pushed out of my own story. I got into bed alone and scrolled the comments again. A few strangers asked where my husband was in the video. I answered that he smiled off camera. I did not know if that was true, but the words helped me. I silenced my notifications and set the phone face down. As I reached for the lamp, the counter hummed. A soft vibration ran under the silence, like a bug inside the wall. I looked toward the kitchen and saw the faint glow under the phone. The caller line did not show a name. I stared into the dark and told myself it was nothing. Morning gave me a bright window and a headache I pretended not to feel. I put on a neat blouse for the salon and tied my hair back in a clean knot. I practiced an easy laugh. The front desk already buzzed with small talk. Ava, my manager, watched me from her office door with that careful face she uses for delicate tasks. She asked for a quick word. I followed her into the HR corner, which is only a narrow space with a frosted glass panel and a plant that leans toward gossip. Ava said a tagged clip with me, and Noah was making rounds. She said a client had shown it at checkout last night. She said she worried about workplace optics because our salon depends on families and repeat customers. I said it was a harmless prank at a birthday, not a scandal. I said Noah was like a brother. She asked if Miles was okay with the joke. I said he was just surprised and fine now. That was not true, but the lie felt like a bridge to a better place. A walk-in customer stood at the front and pretended to read hair product labels while staring at me through the glass. I said I could post a clarification and calm things down. Ava nodded and said tone matters. She reminded me to avoid public scenes in front of clients. I said of course and kept my voice warm. When I stepped back to the desk, 2 regulars whispered near the door about the lap video. I rang up a bottle of shampoo and slid the receipt over with steady hands. My phone buzzed again and again. Ria texted that humor wins and told me to post a new story with a brighter caption. She said I should call the night a silly chair game and lean into the joke. She sent a list of lines that sounded like they were made for a poster. I opened the clip and set a filter that softened everything. I wrote that we were all laughing and that a prank is not betrayal. I said adults can handle a moment of fun. I added 2 hearts and a wink that made me feel invincible for 6 seconds. Miles sent one single line. He said he did not consent to me sitting on Noah. He said that was not our rule. I archived the message because my heart beat too hard. I told myself he wrote it when he was still sore and that he would feel different after lunch. I sent Noah a message that asked him to comment that it was a joke. He replied with a shrug emoji and then nothing. I told myself he was busy or cautious. I did not like that he was cautious, because caution from him made my story feel thin. A mother with a stroller came in for bangs and asked softly if I was the girl from the clip. I said probably, and that the party had been loud. She said she hoped my husband was okay. I said he was steady and supportive. The words sounded pretty. I stacked them like towels and stood taller. The mother booked a trim and left a generous tip because pity can look like kindness. I pretended not to know the difference. Near noon, Miles stopped by with Lila's jacket. He said she had left it in the car last night and would need it for school pickup because the wind would turn. I thanked him like I was hosting a show. He looked at the salon floor as if it were fragile. His phone lit up while he held the jacket. The screen showed a list icon and a label that read household. It flashed once and went dark. He asked if my shift ended on time. I said yes, and added that we should post a cute picture of the 3 of us later to shut down rumors. He said posts would not fix trust. He said structure would. He left without making me small. Somehow that felt worse than anger. I took a short break in the staff nook and opened our shared grocery app. A new list had items lined in tidy rows: school snacks, detergent, stamps, extra child-size masks. It looked like something printed in his head. I told myself he was finally doing his share. I did not admit that the neatness felt like a warning written in polite letters. I added glitter markers to the list to prove the app was still ours together. When I returned to the desk, Danny had posted another angle from the party. In this one, my grin was brighter, and Miles's face in the background was clearer. He looked like a person holding his breath underwater. Comments flowed under it. Some called me fun. Some called me cruel. I liked the fun ones and scrolled past the others. The salon bell chimed. Light from the street cut across the floor in a white bar. A group of teens walked by the front window with phones in their hands like mirrors. Ava came back and asked gently if I wanted to move to the back for a while. She said she did not want me to feel stared at. I said I was fine. I said I could stand in my truth without wobbling. It sounded good and fake at the same time. I focused on the card reader lights and kept my smile soft and professional. For a minute, I forgot the clip and just rang up a set of combs. Then it happened in a blink. Someone outside lifted a phone toward the glass and held it steady. The person's friend leaned in, and I saw my own face on their screen, frozen in the lap sit from last night. The hand holding the phone tilted until the camera looked straight at me. A white flash popped against the window and made the plant's shadow jump. The soundless burst felt loud anyway. I flinched and steadied my hands on the counter. The person lowered the phone and laughed. I could not hear the words, but I knew the shape of them. I breathed in and told myself to smile. The bell rang again. 2 more customers stepped in, already whispering. I felt smaller than I had planned to feel. I checked the schedule and pretended to confirm a booking. My thumb hovered over my own story, like a bird that forgot how to land. I pressed my lips together and waited for the heat to pass, but it did not pass. I told myself this flash was just a ripple and that I could still steer the day. I told myself I only needed Miles to play along with one photo tonight. I told myself the crowd was a tool, not a judge. The plant in the corner leaned toward the light like it also wanted a different room. A delivery truck honked outside and sent a small tremor through the glass. The community center hall smelled like plastic tablecloths and sheet cake. Paper lanterns hung from a line and swung when the door opened. I arrived early with a tray of store cupcakes and a bright voice. Danny waved me over and said the group wanted a fun speech later. I said speeches were my talent. I checked my phone and saw my prank caption holding steady. I told myself tonight I would fix the whole story in one room. Miles came in with Lila and a reusable bag of juice boxes. He greeted the host and set the bag near the punch bowl. He did not look at me first. He tied Lila's party bracelet to her wrist and asked if she wanted to draw at the craft table. She nodded and ran over with 2 other kids. I told a circle of friends that we were fine, just sorting feelings, nothing serious. I used the word sorting because it sounded calm and adult. Noah entered with loud energy like always. He clapped my shoulder and asked if I was ready for round 2 of jokes. I told him the prank narrative was working as long as he played along. He laughed and said the room wrote its own captions. He put on a paper crown and posed for Danny's camera. I noticed a few people looking at Miles and then at me, as if watching for a short movie with no script. I wanted to give them a script before someone else did. I carried cupcakes to the long table and called for attention. I said adults can have a light moment without breaking trust. I said last night was a chair game, with laughter and no harm. I said we should raise a cup to modern love that breathes. Some clapped, some looked unsure. I kept my grin fixed because grins can carry people over doubt. Noah called me bold. He told the nearest table he had been the safe chair. The word safe made me feel covered, and I leaned into it. Miles joined the circle with a neutral face. He took a water and thanked the host. He said he wanted the night to be calm for the kids. I answered that calm was exactly my plan. He said recognition of hurt was also part of calm. I said hurt was a choice when the room was laughing. He said respect should not depend on a crowd. I felt the air thin around us. I pivoted to the group and told them boundaries change when trust is high. I watched phones rise by reflex. Danny stood on a folding chair and asked for a toast. The room chanted for it with happy noise. I held up my plastic cup and said we should toast to no harm, no fear, only fun. I said my marriage was strong enough to handle a moment that looked wild. I said we would laugh about this for years. Lila tugged on Miles's sleeve and asked if she could get a cupcake before the candles. He told her they would wait for the song. She nodded and pressed her cheek to his arm. I noticed how small she was, and then pushed that thought away because the chant grew louder. Noah leaned beside me and stage whispered about being the safe chair again. I held my smile and told him to add that there was nothing to worry about. He grinned at the camera and said the chair joke was the whole story. The room laughed. A neighbor lifted a phone to film. I felt covered again and pressed on. I said for the camera that my husband knew I was playful, that he once told me not to be so strict. Miles said he had said relax at another time, not this one. I told the circle he was mixing things up. Several heads turned to him. He did not change his tone. He said sitting on his best friend in a room full of phones felt like humiliation to him. I laughed too quickly. I said the word humiliation was dramatic. A child near the cake table knocked a fork to the floor, and it clanged. The sound made everyone blink. Danny whispered that the comments on the last clip were climbing. She said people loved the crown on Noah's head. I asked if there were bad comments. She said there were always a few and told me to keep my line steady. I nodded and lifted my cup higher. I told myself if I kept my voice smooth, I could bring Miles with me. He watched Lila decorate a paper hat with stickers. He told her the stars looked strong. She giggled. He smiled for her and not for me. The host dimmed the lights for candles, but the chant kept going for one more toast. I went along with it because I never turned down applause. I said adults can hold two truths, play and loyalty. I said our family was proof. Noah lifted his cup toward Miles and made a face like a silly peace sign. Miles did not raise his cup. He said he hoped we could stop using jokes to cover hurt. I said we were good and that he should say a line for the room. He shook his head. He said he would keep his words for private places. The cake song started and gave us a break. Everyone sang with a rough rhythm. The candles made the air sweet and smoky. Lila's eyes went wide at the flame. Miles helped her blow. For a moment, the hall looked like a painting of peace. Then Danny shouted that we should do one quick recording before the cake cut. The chant started again without asking if I wanted it. Phones rose. The room angled toward me, the way flowers turn toward a window. I smiled into the nearest camera and said the prank meant nothing. I said anyone calling it cheating was projecting fear. I said my husband and I were a team. While I spoke, I saw a small glow on Miles's phone. The lock screen flashed with a word that looked like expenses and then dimmed. He placed the phone face down on the table and adjusted Lila's paper hat. He said to the host that he would take the first slice to the kids' table. He took Lila's hand and walked away without looking back at the cameras. My stomach tightened, but I kept the show going. I gave the nearest camera a nod as if a contract had been signed. I tasted sugar and metal in my mouth. Danny posted the clip in real time. I checked my phone under the table. The hearts jumped, then the comments shifted tone. Some said the prank looked cruel with the child in the background. Some asked about consent again. I told myself those were just a loud few, not the silent many. I projected sturdiness with my shoulders. Still, the room felt tipped to one side. Noah leaned in and asked if he should do a funny bow. I told him to wait. I said we would read the room. The room read me back and did not smile as wide. I decided to end on a high note and excused myself to the restroom. In the mirror, I told my face that control is a mirror too. I returned to the hall and found Miles already thanking the host. He lifted Lila's backpack from a chair and said they would head home for bedtime. I said we had not posted our family photo yet. He said he would not pose. He said he wanted peace, not proof. He left with Lila and a small wave to the group. The door clicked. The chant died. Noah asked if I wanted a ride later. I said I would stay a bit and mingle. Danny said the live had reached a small peak. I nodded like that was a win. I held the edge of the table to steady myself and smiled at people who were already looking past me. In my pocket, the phone buzzed with fresh comments, some warm, some sharp. The family restaurant felt like an old postcard. Vinyl booths, low lights, a window that showed a strip of grey sky. Marta reserved a long table near the back and ordered tea before we arrived. I brought a bakery box to look helpful. Miles held the door for Lila and let it swing back slowly. He guided her to a booster seat and tied her napkin like a small cape. I set the cake box near the end and announced that family time heals everything. My voice sounded like a show I was tired of, but I kept it bright. Menus hid faces for a few minutes, which gave me time to work my plan. I started with easy talk about school art and new shoes. Marta asked in a gentle way if we were talking through the prank. I said we were and that it was only a chair joke. She said public jokes become public lessons for children. I said children need to see adults having fun. She said children need clear rules instead. I called her old-fashioned. She did not react. She just looked at Lila tracing a square on the table with her finger. John slid into a seat near the middle and asked if the weather would hold. I said the forecast promised sun. He kept his eyes on the salt shaker and did not join the main topic. I resented him for that. I wanted a solid opponent, not quiet furniture. Ria texted that I should post a family toast photo from the table. She also added that her phone battery was dying and she could not babysit this week. The message felt like support and distance mixed together. I ignored the second part and clung to the first. Bread arrived and Lila reached for a piece. Miles broke one for her, small and even. He told her they would go to the park after, if the light held. She nodded with full cheeks. I announced that we were not broken, only misunderstood. Marta folded her hands and asked if boundaries existed between adults and friends. I laughed and said boundaries change with trust. Miles said boundaries protect trust. I said he was using big words to make me look small. He said he was using simple words for a child who copies us. I frowned at the table because I did not want to see the copy part. The waitress came with plates and a pen behind her ear. She recognized me from somewhere and asked if we needed extra forks for cake. I said yes and added that it was a small family party. She smiled like people smile when they want no trouble. I reached into my bag for the cake knife and brushed against my phone. Notifications stacked there like a deck. I did not open them. I told myself the world could wait until I finished winning this room. I raised my water glass for a simple toast. I said, love is bigger than one prank. I said, we make mistakes and then grow. I said I was honest about my choices, and that honesty was love. Marta watched me without moving. John cleared his throat and asked about Lila's reading level. Miles answered that she liked simple stories with big pictures. Lila beamed and said she could sound out 3 new words. I clapped with enthusiasm that felt like a costume. It was a good costume. The room loosened a little. Then Lila asked her question. She looked at me and asked if sitting on Uncle Noah at parties was one of Mommy's rules now. She said she had seen a picture on someone's phone at school pickup, and a kid had asked if that was me. The table went quiet as if the ceiling lowered. Marta looked at her tea. John looked at the salt shaker again. The waitress paused 2 steps away and then moved on in slow motion. Miles told Lila that adults sometimes do confusing things and that rules at home stay clear. He said hugs belong to family and choices should be kind. I said it was only a joke. My voice sounded small even to me. I tried to move us forward with cake. I cut slices and placed them in front of everyone, starting with Lila. My hands shook a little, so the frosting line went crooked. I said we would all laugh about this later. Marta said laughter without repair is just noise. I said repair was happening already. She asked where. I pointed to the cake and the napkins and the shared table as if props could be proof. She did not argue. She just asked if Lila could finish by 7 because sleep mattered. Miles nodded and checked his watch. He took a folded notebook from his pocket and wrote a date. I noticed his pen moved without pause. He tucked the notebook away and kept his face smooth. A call vibrated on his phone, unknown number, and he silenced it without reading. I told myself he was just avoiding spam. I told myself the notebook was a grocery plan. I told myself so many things that I could hardly hear the room. 2 neighbors came through the door, the kind who always say hello at the mailbox. They saw me and then lowered their eyes, then looked again. One nudged the other and whispered behind a menu. The motion was small and still too big. I leaned toward Miles and said his cold tone was hurting our image. He said his choices were for Lila, not for an image. I said he was making me look like a villain in my own family. He said I had done that work already, and he wished I would stop the public spin. The bill arrived in a black folder. Miles opened it and placed his card inside with quiet hands. He stacked the receipts neatly when the folder came back. He thanked the waitress by name. He helped Lila with her coat and asked if she wanted to choose a sticker from the bowl. She picked a cat and placed it on her sleeve. I waited for someone to offer me a role to play. No one did. I stood and lifted the cake box again, like it weighed more than it should. We stepped into the small lobby by the door to say goodnight. The glass had a slight fog from outside air. Marta put a hand on my arm and said she knew I loved Lila. She said love listens. I said I was listening, just in a modern way. She nodded once like a teacher marking a mid-grade. John said he could take Lila to the park one afternoon this week, if that helped. I said we did not need help. Miles said help was welcome and thanked him. The words rubbed me like a sweater with a tag. We pushed the door open to the sidewalk. The sky had gone darker. The neighbors stood near the window and pretended to check their phones. One looked up and met my eyes by accident. She did not smile. I felt the urge to swing my phone up and post a happy family frame, right there under the awning. I reached for it. My hand stopped because Lila tugged my sleeve to show me the cat sticker shining under the streetlight. She said the cat looked brave. I said the cat looked brave too. I could not tell which of us I meant. The stairwell smelled like dust and warm metal. I met Miles on the landing with a grocery bag and a good smile. He carried a pillow and a folded blanket. He said the couch made the nights calmer for Lila. I said the couch was a silent punishment. He said routine beat arguments. I moved past him and set fruit on the counter like I was staging peace. He poured water and checked the time. His phone lit with a small block that read Downtown 09:35. He turned it face down without a word. I posted a soft photo of our kitchen. I wrote that strong couples love jokes. Ria sent hearts but no offer to help with school pickup. Marta texted only about Lila's bedtime. I said people were overreacting. Miles said the room at the party had been enough reaction. I told him the internet would calm down once we posted a hug. He said posts were not repairs. I said repairs could be public. He said repairs would be private. At the park, he sat on a bench and watched Lila count the rungs of the ladder. He spoke about schedules and quiet. I said he was hiding behind rules. He said rules kept children safe when adults felt messy. I told him he made me look like a villain. He said I could stop playing one. He kept his eyes on Lila and named each slide one more. I liked that his voice stayed even and hated it at the same time. We stopped at the supermarket. A neighbor by the eggs looked at me twice and then at Miles. I said to the cashier we were doing great and laughed too loudly. Miles asked for the receipt and folded it with two others. I asked why the paper pile mattered. He said tracking helped decisions. I called it small thinking. He thanked the cashier and held the door for an older man who smiled at him and not at me. Home was clean in a new way. A narrow shelf had fresh folders: household, insurance, schedule, media. His laptop glowed with neat cells and tabs. A call buzzed without a name. He muted it. I said the show had gone far enough. I said we should delete clips and post one united frame. He said the show was done. He said the next steps would be handled properly. I laughed and asked what that meant, like I didn't feel a draft behind the words. The printer in the other room started to spool. Pages fed through with a steady sound I could feel in my teeth. He walked past me and straightened the stack, then turned off the light. He told me tomorrow's pickup time was unchanged and that Lila's jacket was by the door. I reached for the pages and he moved them away. Calm, not unkind. He said later. I said I needed clarity. He said I would get it. Hook trigger, R action. Calm threat. He said, very even, that he would handle this properly. The printer kept spooling behind the closed door. The courthouse plaza had flat light that made everyone look honest. I arrived at noon with a speech in my mouth. I planned to say the prank was nothing and that we were a team. Miles stepped from the shade with a plain messenger bag. He stood at a respectful distance. I started to talk. A woman beside him asked me to confirm my name. Her tone was polite, like she had asked 100 names today. She held an envelope. She said the packet was for me. I said there must be a mistake. She checked a line and handed me the papers. They were heavier than I expected. Security watched from the steps. 2 clerks on lunch paused with their sandwiches. I opened the top page and saw the quiet words that do not bend. It was a divorce petition. It carried temporary orders about money and the apartment for now. It included a proposed custody schedule for Lila, with school pickups, weekends, and holidays marked. It named a rule about social media and the child's privacy. I looked up at Miles and said this was too far. He said this was necessary. He said today's pickup time was in the packet. He said arguments would move into the right channels. I said the lapsit was a prank, not cheating. He said the label did not change the impact. He did not step toward me. He did not raise his voice. He kept the same respectful space, as if a painted line lay between us on the stone. A breeze lifted the top sheet. I pressed it down with a thumb that shook. The plaza felt loud and quiet at once. A clerk whispered that she should head back. A man with a briefcase glanced and then looked away on purpose. I read the first lines again, and the words stayed. My mouth went dry. I told him we could fix this with one good post. He said posts were not part of the plan. He said Lila would eat dinner at a normal hour. The process server thanked me for accepting service and walked off toward the entrance. Miles nodded once, as if checking a box no one else could see. He said he wished me a good day. He turned toward the crosswalk. Sunlight drew a white stripe across the stone. I called his name and asked him to wait. He lifted a hand in a small wave without looking back. The security radio clicked once and fell quiet. I stood with the papers open and the first page showing. Someone from my street passed by and recognized me. She slowed, then sped up. I stared at the section about the schedule and the short line about not posting Lila's face. I thought about the folders on the shelf, the muted calls, the printer, the word properly. I tried to make the plaza smaller with my shoulders. It stayed big. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.